Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome to the Robbies Podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League and the Champions League. I'm Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earle, and today we break down week 19 of the Premier League season. Here are today's topics. Manchester City grab an important 3 points at Stamford Bridge, beating Chelsea 1-0. Arsenal drop points at home, playing out an exciting 0-0 draw with Newcastle United. Manchester United continue their great form, beating Bournemouth 3-0. Liverpool struggle, losing 3-1 to Brentford. And Tottenham score 4 at Crystal Palace, including 2 from Harry Kane, winning 1. That's what we've got coming up in today's episode.
And let's not forget that the Super Motocross World Championship Series returns at Anaheim. Don't miss the action from the Angel Stadium this weekend, Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on USA and Peacock, and Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Big NBC. Okay, Mr. Mustoe, let's start our discussions off with a big high-profile game at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea nursing 1 or 2 injuries, facing Manchester City trying to close that 8-point gap at the top of the table to Arsenal. And it's City that come away with the points after a somewhat strange first half. And a Chelsea team in the end that looked more like an under-23 team than a team that's vying to win the Premier League title. How did you see it at Stamford Bridge? Bit of a strange game, this one, mate. Yeah,
it was a strange game. I think the headline from the first half was Pep's changes, personnel changes, and a system change. And we've seen this before from Pep, Rob, where he throws a big wrinkle in and changes things a lot and has players doing things that's pretty unusual. To that regard, it was, for example, Rodri was playing sometimes in a back three, which turned into a back four. Then he came out with the ball into midfield. Cancelo we expected at left back. He played like a right wing back position. Changes on the left side. Phil Foden came back into the team, Rob, on the left-hand side. Mahrez on the right-hand side. It was just a very unusual system setup that he went with. I thought the football struggled, thought the fluidity struggled. I thought it was too difficult, too complicated. The football was very basic, very squarey, very no penetration. I think their first shot, Rob, we had a stat come through, or something. It was like the 33rd minute for Man City to make their first shot. I think that's the highest, or the highest number, the longest it's taken for a first shot for Man City since 2018. Like, it's a crazy. So it just didn't work out, and there was nothing from. Well, you had one chance at Earle in the first half where it just gets played in and doesn't connect properly. So first half was a bit of a write-off and a bit of a waste, I thought, from City in terms of trying to dominate and win the game. Second half they made changes, but the first half, Rob, was just like, okay, didn't work out, and he totally changed it for the second half.
I heard you guys talking a little bit about it at half-time, and you were a little bit stronger than Tim on it, but is this another one of those cases where Pep talked about Chelsea, was worried about whether they were going to play 3 at the back and how they were going to play, and is there that Pep overcomplicating things? We know Chelsea, remember, let's go back to Champions League when he didn't play a holding midfield player, and people suggested, that is this part of Pep that's maybe the flawed genius that, his football's so complex, it's so good, it's so pleasing on the eye. Sometimes does he overthink it, Rob? Is there a chance of, they're going reasonably well, the system's pretty grooved in, everybody knows what they're doing, as you see second half. What's in his head, Rob, to think that he needs to do it differently? Is he thinking people are starting to work them out? Maybe has Potter slightly spooked him a little bit with maybe some of his Brentford performances rather than maybe his Chelsea performances?
I can't imagine he was too worried about how Chelsea were going to set up, Rob, given the way that Chelsea have been playing. I just can't imagine that. I think sometimes he chucks something different out there just to keep everybody who's watching on their toes. Oh, Pep could do this, and when we play them, they might do that. I think it was that. I think he said afterwards, I think he might have hinted that he thought Chelsea might play 3 at the back. I just don't know. I did the lineups on our tactics board before the game, and it's so difficult when you do a Pep team. Actually, Graham Potter as well. Actually, is not easy to read. But I thought Chelsea might be different. Chelsea was kind of as we expected, but City was very, very different. Thing is, though, Rob, we did get to hear that right before half time that Akanji and Rico Lewis were warming up as if, like, okay, he's going to go back to what it's like in the last game and the game before against Leeds United.
In fairness, he was big enough to do that, wasn't
he? Yeah, he was, and it made all the difference. He didn't
sort of stay with it and be stubborn. Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about the players that came in. From Chelsea's point of view, Rob, wouldn't that almost be... I know they're not playing particularly as well as they would like, but a City team that's a bit disjointed, that's not got their rhythm, with a reasonable-looking starting lineup for Chelsea, with Sterling, Ziyech back in the team, bit of a surprise, Pulisic, and then the 2 injuries coming very early in the game, which kind of disrupted any kind of flow that maybe Graham Potter would have liked. Certainly disappointing for Sterling first few minutes against his former team, and then Pulisic in an attempt to strike on goal looks like he maybe caught his ankle or his ligament, something in the challenge, and he was off as well. And then all of a sudden Graham Potter's lineup looks very different, and his options are not quite as good as we'd expect from a Chelsea team.
Yeah, I just think it's difficult. It's a tough watch, Chelsea, right now, Rob, and of course, when you look at their league table position, it's incredible where they are, like mid-table for Chelsea Football Club, and some of the teams that are above them, your Brentfords and your Fulhams, etc., etc. It's a terrible look, and I'm not giving him a total pass here, because with the players available now, they still should be doing better. But given the injuries, and given the extra injuries in this match, and then given, I thought, Rob, the performances or the mentality, the attitude from some of the players in the Chelsea side, and I'm talking about Sabu came in, Aubameyang came into the game, Rob. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was on the bench. He's been on the bench for recent games, and maybe he doesn't like that, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. And when he comes on, he offered nothing in the game, because he came on very early, didn't he, for the first injury to Raheem Sterling. I thought Hakim Ziyech had a chance to kind of establish himself again a little bit and find some of the form that we saw him for Morocco in the World Cup. I don't think he looked particularly at it. And Marc Cucurella, a player that, we've watched and enjoyed at Brighton and before that, and had no kind of fight in him at left fullback. All these players, went out of the game. Aubameyang was subbed out of it later on. Robbie was brought on and then subbed out again. So he's got all these issues, Rob. And again, I don't want to give him a total out here, because there's a lot of good players there that he's got to inspire, and that's why I'm a bit worried right now. I think we said it on our last podcast about, is he inspiring this team, and are they going to fight for him and play for him? But there's so many issues with injuries, both before and during the game. It's difficult to be too critical. I mean, I thought I enjoyed Chelsea in the last 20 minutes, Rob, when the young players, the kids that come through the academy, Lewis Hall at left back looks better. I mean, I've seen him a couple of times now than Cucurella. Cucurella was $76 million. And we think about, Chelsea are going to go out there and buy a lot of new great players. Well, try and get it right, because even Ziyech hasn't really done it consistently for Chelsea at all. Aubameyang's proved to be a bad bit of business as well. They've got to get these signings right. Yeah. So that's the worry, and it's looking messy and horrible for Chelsea at the moment.
Sort of my takeaway from the Graham Potter situation, just in terms of Chelsea, is that actually now, Rob, he's really finding out what managing a Big Six team is all about. Because I was thinking, you remember he had a little spell where he had a couple of games didn't go for well when he was at Brighton. And I always remember the game was Brighton versus Leeds at home, and they got booed off. I think it was a 0-0, and he got booed, and it was a bit like, maybe a few hundred Brighton fans booing. Most Brighton fans would be really respectful of what he's done and pleased with the progress the club have made under his tenure. But when you're at Chelsea, Rob, and you've got injuries, which is a big problem, he's got maybe slightly demotivated players, some star players. There's lots of noise going around Chelsea, with signings coming in and this player, and if they're fighting, Mudryk and players that they're trying to sign, how much he knows about that, how much he's on side of that. And then just being at a Big Six club with voices, with things going on, I just hope that he's slightly embracing it, and he's realising this is what he's got to do to prove, because if for any reason this doesn't go well and he loses his job, the first thing people are going to say is, he couldn't handle the Big Six, couldn't handle the big players. And he's kind of got to find his way past that, Rob, if he's going to take that next step. Pochettino was a great example, went from Southampton to Spurs and, had to find his way. And, Ten Hag's come in at Manchester United, different experience, I get it, for my ex, but had to kind of go through a few tough times, install a bit of discipline, and now we're seeing the rewards. I just think Graham Potter's got to go through a little bit of this, Rob, to come out the other side. And I hope he's got the kind of drive and the will to see it out and doesn't start thinking like, well, maybe this isn't for me, maybe this job's too big for me. Because I think he's good enough, Rob. I think tactically and once he gets the squad right and the balance and chemistry right, then he'll prove it to be a good manager. But listen, there's a few things going on that he's got to deal, he's got to address. And you know what, Rob? If now and then you've got to get one or two out or training with the kids, if Aubameyang's not going to give you anything and you've got to stick in with the kids, sometimes you've got to do those kind of things just to let everybody know you're the guy in charge.
Yeah, and just a couple of things, Rob, as well, to give him a little bit of maybe a little bit of a break as well. That Thomas Tuchel wasn't going great towards the end of his time at Chelsea, Rob. Didn't have a striker. Still haven't got a striker. No. Didn't have fullbacks that were fit. Still, fullbacks, the best fullbacks, Chilwell and Reece James, are not fit. So there's still problems there now that he's trying to figure out, where Tuchel couldn't do it as well. I mean, I like you, Rob, I hope this continues. I hope that, if they lose the next 2 or 3 games, Rob, I don't know what Todd Bowley's like. I don't know whether, my sense is, and we don't know enough yet, that this is a long-term thing, and some of these new players that are signing, defender that's just signed, Badiashile, is on a 7.5-year contract, so it feels like everybody's signing these long contracts too, and that makes sense. So I just want to cut. I want to cut to the point where players are in, windows closed, the fit players are back. Okay, let's see. Let's see it now, Graham Potter. What you've got, and how you're going to manage this, and how you're going to try and build a team. Because at the moment, it is very, very transitional, and it has been for a while, isn't it? Let's face it. When the club, the Abramovich time, and trying to get. I mean, my goodness, they've had a bit of a nightmare of a 12-month period or whatever it is. But I just hope that they can kind of hang in there. It looks like they're not going to win anything, or they're not. Well, they're still in the Champions League. I believe that they can still win that. But very, very difficult, Rob. I just switching back over to Man City, Rob, because the second half was so different, and the players came back into the team that have been playing. So the ones, particularly like Riyad Mahrez. Sorry, I think I've said that he started. He didn't start. He came in on that side. Cancelo played on that right-hand side.
He came in half,
Yeah, so he came into the game. Jack Grealish come back on, assisted for Mahrez's goal. So 2 players that have been playing pretty well, that were left out, they were back in. And a very interesting player, and I'm going to go straight to my underappreciated performer of this midweek round of fixtures, Rob, and it's Rico Lewis. Underappreciated is maybe not quite the right summary of him right now, because he hasn't. I mean, he's so new that he maybe get appreciated very, very quickly.
It's hard to appreciate him or not.
It's more of everybody. We got to look at this guy. I mean, we saw him play a couple of times now, Rob. Brilliant the way he plays fullback from the academy. He's 18 years of age. He started at 8 years of age. At Manchester City's academy, they play like the first team plays. The fact that he can come in to the first team, to the champions, 18 years of age, play a fullback in a very complicated way where he comes into midfield, he sometimes goes forward, he sometimes comes back, he gets the ball, he makes great decisions. The manager afterwards said that Rico Lewis changed the game and that he's fantastic and he's so thankful for the academy, and he can play outside, he can play inside. It's a tip of the hat to this 18-year-old kid that he's an English player, just to watch him play and how technically good he is and great decision-making that he makes when he's on the ball, both outside and inside. And he I didn't say change the game, like Pep said afterwards, but I tell you, that right side now with Kyle Walker, going out the side, Akanji came back in as well. It's just one for everybody to watch out for. Rico Lewis looks very, very good.
It's a really good shout, mate. Really good shout. We saw him in the Champions League, didn't we? He scored in the Champions League. I think it was his first game in, and we started to see. And then we've seen him play in that midfield role where he can be so good. We were at Leeds game, weren't we, where we saw him, and he's happy to have the ball, confident. It's interesting that Pep said other players gain confidence when he come on the pitch, like 18-year-old kid with these top players. It's a really good shout. And I just wonder if it's a start of, Rob, a little bit of a transition with Pep, that, you know, one or two of those old names have been great for them over the past. You know, there might be a time in the next year or two we start to see a transition of some of these young players. And again, I think I've mentioned it on the podcast, but it's something City don't get enough credit for. Their academy, and how if they're good enough, you get a chance. You know, the Fodens, the Cole Palmers, you know, Rico Lewis. You watch the under-23s, Rob. I saw the under-23s play sometime last year. These are about 3 or 4 left-footed players who've all got the Foden, the Cole Palmer, that can play strong, lovely left foot, can see pictures, and they deserve a lot of credit, City, because they put a lot of money and a lot of effort into that academy when they first went to the football club. And I think, 10 years on now, we're starting to see the benefit of those 6, 7, 8-year-old kids who were then, who are now coming through to the first team. So really great shout on Rico Lewis. Yeah. Just before we close up on City, a couple of other players I just want to give a quick mention to, my friend. John Stones. John always got a rick in him. Stones is actually, my friend, since the World Cup, playing with a lot more maturity, with a responsibility. And I thought in the first half, when most of his teammates looked a bit out of colour, I thought he was excellent. His challenge on Pulisic, as Pulisic goes through his top draw, his covering positions, I thought once or twice in the first half, were excellent. So John Stones is somebody who at times we've criticised for his concentration, and is he really going to be the top guy with other sort of start the Diaz's and Laporte's next to him? Thought he was excellent today, John Stones. The other player, Rob, I just want to mention, I know you touched on him just as the show was finishing today, and he did a lovely interview with our partners, Sky Sports. Jack Grealish, my friend. Jack Grealish is a player who I think we all like because of what he can do, what he brings. And as I was watching his interview today and saw his second half performance as he came on, Jack Grealish, to me, Rob, is a player who, despite all the skills and the look and the clothing and the fashion and the coolest guy in town, I think he's still a little bit of a slightly low confidence guy. And I think when his confidence is up, like he was at Villa, when he's the man and Dean Smith's telling him, go and play where you want, I think you see the best of Jack. I think in a difficult system that he's still having to work out, and he talked about himself, I think there's still challenges. And I just get the sense that he's starting to feel better about himself and be more comfortable in what City are doing, and feeling he can have an influence more on what City are doing. And I thought he was very honest today with his interview after game. And I think we're just starting to see maybe what Pep bought and some of what Jack can do in terms of taking City on to the next level.
Yeah, super interesting, Rob. I think the best bit for me is when he talked about with Pep, he's got to play in certain spots. He hasn't got that license to go everywhere. He hasn't got the fullback overlapping him all the time. The teams do drop in there, and it's very, very different. I think it comes down to production. 3 assists in his last 3 in the Premier League. That's more like it from Jack Grealish. If he's on those type of numbers and he grows from here, obviously the goals will have to come as well. That's what you want to see. And Phil Foden got a chance today, didn't take it. Now his numbers have been good up to this point. He's been the best player on the left-hand side, and I think we've said that. I've certainly said it, that he's the best option for there. But things change in football, and players learn. And it was a great interview. He's having a laugh and so open about it's much harder than he thought it was. So it's a good point. And I was going to ask you about Jack Grealish, so I'm pleased you brought it up. But no, City turned it on second half. Players that have been playing were back in the side and off the bench, and they looked a lot better. And it's an important 3 points for Man City, who even were better in the second half. Still, there's a lot more to come from, Rob, isn't there? I still don't think they
there's more to come. They
didn't reach fifth gear really, but still won the game 1-0, and they're 5 points back from Arsenal Football Club.
Behind, Yeah, still a bit ominous, like you say, City to get better, maybe 1 or 2 World Cup headaches with 1 or 2 of the players, but close that gap to 5, and with Pep and City that at any point they can go on one of those long runs that change the look at the top of the table. Let's move it to the Emirates, mate. I think one of the most anticipated games of this Matchweek round. Arsenal at home to Newcastle, first versus third, top of the table. Eddie versus Mikel Arteta. Didn't play out in terms of goals, Rob, but I think, for any kind of football lover, it was a decent 0-0. There was plenty of good football on show. There was plenty of good attacking from one side, good defending from the other, plenty of incident. let's go to first of all the two big incidents that Mikel Arteta went very, very strong on after the game. Rob, he thought that Arsenal should have had 2 penalties. I slightly disagree with him, and again, I'll put my point out there. I thought the Dan Burn one was a possibility. I don't think it was a stonewall. I think it was a possibility and could have been looked at. I didn't think that the Murphy one with the handball was. I thought proximity. I didn't think his hand was in it to an unexpected position. And probably for the way that they defended and the manner in which they defended, maybe Newcastle will feel they deserved the draw. But what was your take on the big calls, and then what was your overriding feelings of the game?
Well, first of all, on the calls, I agree with you. Not handball. In a million years, it's not handball. His arm is really close to his body. It hits his arm, but come on, it's absolutely not. And the other one, the Dan Burn one, maybe a little bit, but come on, no. So I agree with the officials on it. I mean, Mikel Arteta, we should talk about it in a second. Let me just give my overriding kind of thought.
We'll talk. Yeah,
I thought it was a brilliant game. I thought it was a brilliant game, Rob, because I love to see teams go flat out like that. We don't see teams go flat out. You know, when you watch Liverpool right now, the way that they're playing, and even Man City in the game against Chelsea, Rob, in this recent game, they do it in different ways, of course. But I just love the fact that it was two teams
at that level,
going 100% flat out. Arsenal desperate to win the 3 points. Really quick out the blocks. Newcastle United realised, wow, this is going to be difficult. They literally rolled their sleeves up, and they fought and they scrapped and they ran and they were together and they had a great shape. They had counter-attacks. I just thought it was a brilliant game, Rob. And it's two teams that are going places, and it's two teams that I feel in their dressing rooms, and I've said this a million times, think that something special is happening, because I absolutely believe in that. I felt it myself and way back when I was playing. We had a great year and stuff, and you feel it. And I think these two teams put on a performance that looked like that. I know when you see 0-0, you want goals, you want a winner maybe. I just thought it was a great game, Rob. Great game. Eddie Nketiah could have won it. Eddie Nketiah had a chance where he goes through, he makes a decent shot.
With the shot, Nick Pope makes a save and he kicks it away,
So I just thought I really, really enjoyed the game because of two teams. Somebody asked me, Rob, about it. I was with a friend of mine and was sort of saying, wow, how fast is the Premier League? And I said, that's how it is. Yeah. In certain times, it's so fast you can't catch your breath, and I just enjoy watching teams that go flat out like that. And the attacking football, the defending football, the quality. I thought it was intense, quality, passion, all of the above, wrapped up in a brilliant atmosphere at the stadium there at Arsenal. Loved the game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The pace of the game is something that I think we appreciate from even the game we played. It's another level. I think one of the great things when we go to England, Rob, and we're pitch side, you do see another level then. And I would implore anybody who ever gets a chance, whether you're in the US or anywhere around the world listening to this, and you get a chance to go to a game and get close to that pitch, it takes it to another level. It's like, theatre and art and drama and everything mixed into one. I totally agree in that. I looked at this game, Rob, and I was thinking, these two clubs over the last few years have had nothing like this, Rob, have they? They've both been on sort of difficult times and trying to re-establish themselves, and all of a sudden they're back shining, they're back sort of being the best sort of personality that they can be. Arsenal flowing, attacking football, giving it everything to score. Newcastle playing on a clever counter-attack, but having a defence that, Steve Bruce would have killed for this defence, because Steve Bruce wanted to defend with a defence like this and then break away. He didn't have the players, he didn't have the setup, didn't probably get the motivation in the organisation. I think it's 10 clean sheets now for Newcastle and Nick Pope, and I think you mentioned the other day some of the big signings who've gone in, Guimaraes and the likes who've come in. Nick Pope's been a really good signing for him. Steady, solid, just what you want, not over dramatic. Does a good job for him. Looks like a really good communicator. I just felt like it's the best version of these two teams we've seen for some time. I think the 0-0 draw in the end, Newcastle just about deserved that. I suppose my thoughts would go to, and it's interesting you say the Nketiah chance. Does a top-class striker in there make a difference for Arsenal?
And that's what I've heard, Rob. I've heard that, and I think it's unfair. I think it's unfair. He scored goals in his first couple of games back in as the main number 9. He always. I just think it's too easy for people to sort of say, "Oh, look, we need another striker." If Arsenal want to win the title, they've got to go in the market, and I don't know. I don't know whether they have. I mean, Jesus isn't going to be injured for that long. I like Nketiah. I thought the way he played surprised me. Absolutely, Rob. I thought he surprised me. His general play was pretty good. He turned a couple of times. He had a couple of runs in the box. I don't know. I just think it's so easy for everybody to say, Arsenal need a new striker. Go on then. Go and try and find one. Go and try and find one that's going to be happy to come to a club that, in a few weeks' time, you got Jesus that's going to expect to play. The money that you need on that particular position. I just think they've got to be really, really careful if they do go for another striker. Wow, I mean, I don't know about that.
It's got to be the top end, hasn't it? It's got to be the top end. Mudryk, or if he's available, obviously.
He's a bit different, Rob, isn't he? He's not going to play. He's a bit different. He's not going to play as a striker. He's more of a wide player. Martinelli might play it front then. I like that.
Martinelli maybe or whatever. Yeah. That's good business, but. Just Mikel Arteta, Rob, because he got some headlines. It was interesting that I saw Pep Guardiola the day after started to talk about mind games, and there was a little bit of you have to handle the pressure at the top of the league. There's a long way to go. I think we're still a game away from halfway. Arsenal have been brilliant to this point, absolutely top class.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Mikel Arteta on the sideline? Are you okay with the emotion? Is that part of who he is and part of what gets the team going? Do you feel he has to maybe restrict himself a little bit, Rob, to make sure that his team stay calm? Where are you with managers and what we're seeing on the pitch? Because it does have an effect. We only have to go back to remember Sir Alex and Kevin Keegan era when, Sir Alex got to him, Newcastle kind of lost it, and with that lost the game, lost their composure and lost the title. How's Mikel Arteta, do you think, gonna sort of handle that kind of pressure and some decisions that don't go his way on the sideline?
You know what, it's a really interesting conversation, Rob, because I get it, right? And I know a lot of the fans of teams like to see their manager animated. I think the players, in some ways, look over and maybe react to it and are fired up as well. But I think there's a fine line. And to be fair to the players of Arsenal Football Club now, Rob, they are in control of themselves. It wasn't long ago, Rob, but we talked about Arsenal losing discipline and all these red cards and stuff like that. And Arteta to try and... So I think there's a bit of a risk if Arteta takes us any further that all of a sudden on the field the players are going to go over the line, Rob. And maybe they're going to get some of these yellow cards again. I think all the players that surround the referee and all that. So I think he's got to be careful of that. But in general, I think he looks a bit of a prat on the sideline. I think he's like. I think Eddie Howe said. I think he said to him calm down. Like he's going crazy on the side. He was getting everybody's face and running up and down and outside his technical area all the time. I'm not a fan of it. But again, I understand that fans, maybe the Arsenal fans do like it. There was a phone-in, Rob, on the UK radio, which we tune into a lot. And this, what do you think to Arteta? Okay. You like it? And some in it, they were mixed. Some of them liked it. They don't want a manager like they compared to Antonio Conte, his recent, that loss against Aston Villa. And he's kind of there. He's, he's not animated. And some of them liked Arteta. Others like, we got to be careful here. We don't get too wound up, too emotionally involved, and then something breaks with that. So, to answer your question, I think he's overacting on the sideline. I think a lot of it's for show, for effect, and he won't care what I think. I guess as long as the team's winning and he feels it's helping his team, then okay. I just think he's a bit of a clown on the sideline. What do you think?
I like managers to be themselves first and foremost, and that comes with a balance. So if that's your personality, if you're not putting it on, you're saying sometimes you're putting it on either for cameras or for effect or whatever. That I'm not cool with, and I don't get, because I think you get found out with that, and I think your players can see through that.
Yeah.
They'll know what he's like, and I'm okay with him being himself, Rob. But I'm with you. it can go too far. It can get too much. He started to end up having an argument with Eddie Howe, who was almost just trying to say, "Okay, I don't think it's handball. Don't worry." And if it starts to become too much, it becomes an issue. And it'll be something, I'm telling you, that other teams will jump on, other managers will jump on, the media will jump on, like, Arteta lost control and Arsenal lost the title. And he deserves better than that, and the club deserve better than that.
Yeah.
There is times, Rob, that when you've been unbadly done, when you can let it go. I didn't think any of those two occasions were. If he's going like that over this, what's he going to be like if something, somebody gets a card or, something else happens?
He can't see, Rob, can he? He can't see from where he is. I just want him to be balanced.
I want him to be him. No, we can't see. And he's jumping up and down. He's trying to... Now, again, Rob, I don't know if he's trying to do a little bit, Sir Alex used to do it back in the day, and Wenger maybe used to do it where you're trying to force referees and just influence things. Now, again... But I don't know if that's him, Rob, yet. And the way he's doing it doesn't quite feel authentic. So my big thing will be yourself, Mikel. We've seen the documentary. We've seen how you are with your plays. We've seen it. Just be yourself, because that's doing pretty good so far.
Yeah, just a final thing from me on the game, just thinking about the game, Rob. I do want to give some more credit to Newcastle United. The way that they have turned around, the way they are fighting now for the club is amazing. Yeah. I think you made a really good point earlier, Rob, about these two clubs that haven't had this fun and excitement for many years, and they're loving it. They're loving it. I thought the atmosphere in the stadium was great. Cool. Those Geordie fans, by the way, something else. That's a 4 or 5 hour at least drive down from Tyneside down to North London. A lot of them would be going back, getting in at 3 o'clock in the morning, probably. I thought the fans were superb for Newcastle United. We know that, and they are incredibly excited about how the team is doing, and the team is doing them proud. For every single player, Rob, there's not one. We just, again, it's easy to compare, isn't it, with games that other teams that are not at it. They're not carrying any players, Newcastle, nor Arsenal. They're not carrying anybody. No. They're all absolutely at it, giving everything. And again, 0-0, but I tell you, I thought it was a really, really good game.
Yeah, excellent game of football, 0-0 at the top, so a point apiece shared first and third. Let's move on to a team that seems to be ticking along very nicely at the moment. Manchester United at home to Bournemouth. Manchester United 3, Bournemouth 0. A little bit of a worry for Gary O'Neill, things going a little bit awry since he was appointed the full-time job. But for Ten Hag, Manchester United and their sort of pursuit of top 4, Rob, pretty good at the moment. Was it 3 straight wins in the Premier League? Pretty much clean sheets for, I think, Arsenal were the last team to score at Old Trafford in the league against Manchester United. I read somewhere. I heard a lot of appreciation. I read a really good article somebody wrote on Ten Hag, Rob, and just saying that the discipline that he's brought is the basis for what we're seeing. Whether it was Garnacho, I think, very early on. Remember the young kid was a bit on timekeeping and that got mentioned. We saw the Rashford incident with Wolves that he puts to bed. The Ronaldo thing we've seen he's dealt with. Eventually, he's moved on, put to bed. There's a discipline and organisation about the team. There's an accountability about the team that we haven't seen for United for some time.
Yeah, I think so, Rob, and I think it's great, isn't it? I mean, it's great for Man United fans to feel like they're on the right track, to feel like they've got the right manager, to feel like the style of play is what they want to see, Rob, and that hasn't been the case for, like loads and loads of years. I think he's getting it all in there. Now you start to see, what he wants in terms of the style of play. There's some selections he's made. There's some transfer dealings that have worked out. Casemiro continues to excel, Rob, the way that he does it in midfield, scoring a goal in this game as well in the 3-0 victory. Rashford scores again. And I just quickly, we chat briefly about an underappreciated performer each match, Rob, and I'm influenced by Rico Lewis of just watching that game. But my guy that I was going to go with is Luke Shaw. And of course, in terms of an honourable mention, I've got to talk about Luke Shaw, Rob, because my goodness, if there's a player at Man United that's gone up to down to up, and he's great and he's not great, and he's this and he's that, and he's injured, is he injured? Is he weak? Is he soft?
Yeah.
He's had to take so much criticism and scrutiny. I can't believe it. I have always really liked him as a player. Now, there's been moments where, he takes so much criticism. You think, well, maybe is he then? Maybe he isn't all that. And sometimes the goals do come down his side. But I think this season, and for maybe 12 months now, he had a good World Cup. I think he's looked excellent as a right fullback, Rob. He's deceptively quick. He's good on the ball. And this little switch into the left side of a central defensive partnership with Varane or wherever it has been recently, he's looked $1 million. He's looked $1 million because he's a good defender. He's short. He's good on the ball. He makes great passes. He's quick. He can get in behind. And it's interesting, I read something the other day, sort of basically saying about Luke Shaw and well done Ten Hag, because in modern day Premier League football, it's not what it used to be, Rob. It's not what it used to be. Set pieces, set pieces, you need a couple of big guys to get out there and head the ball out. But it's not as though Luke Shaw, playing for Man United in this Premier League, is defending a ton of crosses. It's changed, Rob, hasn't it? It's kind of changed where it's more intricate and wingers come inside and they shoot. It's less crosses, where a shorter centre-back, and United know this, of course, with Lisandro Martinez, who's done great. I just thought it was an interesting point that in modern-day football, maybe at the top level, I mean, do you really, particularly if your other one is like a Varane or somebody, or a Maguire plays with him or something that's got more height and can head the ball. So I thought that was interesting. And Ten Hag, I guess, feels the same way. Like, do we have to have hugely tall centre-backs? Unless we're playing against Brentford and a few of the others. But I think Luke Shaw deserves a mention for how he's switched from left-back to centre-back and the longevity.
It's a good shout, because I was watching. I didn't actually see the game, and then ended up watching a highlight package, and then I just saw his goal, Rob, and had to go back a couple of times and watch it. From left back, he intercepts. He's build up play, his pace. He runs forward. He gets in the box. He finishes with his right foot, and it's like, wow, for all the criticism he's had and what he is, and in his body shape and this and that and height, and could he be?
Everything.
I mean, it's all been aimed at him, and I think, in fairness to him, he's had to toughen up and accept a little bit. The time when Mourinho was there and he had a difficult time with him. It's a great shout for you underappreciated, because he's come in. It was interesting, Rob. I looked at the whole back four. You look at the back four of Wan-Bissaka, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof and Luke Shaw. It was almost like an Ollie back four. It was like a retro for all the new signings who've come in, the Darlows and the Varanes and the Martinez. It was that old back four, but that old back four in a slightly different culture, Robert, with a different kind of setup. They all kind of start seeing the better of them, the better side of them, the best side of Luke Shaw. Harry Maguire is assumed still got to cement his place back in the team, but performances are good enough. Another clean sheet. The goalkeeper behind, who's one of those, Rob. It's an interesting one with David De Gea. Now, I was interested in this one. Like, we know De Gea now. He's coming to that age where you either got to go with him and give him a decent contract for the next, say, 3 years and go with him, or does he quite fit the playing out of the back goalkeeper that, now you've got to be good with your feet and be able to play into midfield, etc., etc. Would you sign David De Gea if you were in charge? I would, personally. I still think he's good enough with his hands and capable enough with his feet to still be a number one at Manchester United, because I just feel a little bit, for me, Rob, is becoming a new number one at Man United is not as easy as just going in and keeping goal. There's a pressure that comes with that role that he had when he went, and many great goalkeepers have been there. Our own Tim Howard will tell you the expectancy of what that is. Where would you be with De Gea if you were in charge?
I really like him, so I'd be keeping him. And I think we've, just over the last couple of days, Rob, there's reports that he's willing to take a pay cut. I think he's one of those that he got a huge contract for his last one, talking about £375,000 a week or something, really high number. I think he said that he wants to finish his career at Manchester United. I don't know. It's a big call by the club. Like you said, if they're going to change him up, I mean, wow. Good luck trying to find somebody as good as him. I get the only thing, the reason would be the playing out. Well,
Jordan Pickford. I've seen Jordan Pickford got mentioned. Oh. Yeah, Jordan Pickford's name's come up in one or two conversations.
Personally, I wouldn't change that, Rob. I think there's other bits of this squad that I'd want to focus on and spend some money on. And if De Gea, if he's happy at the club and he wants to stay on, and and the contract can be sorted, I wouldn't mess around with it. But I respect those who think that there should be a change there, but not for me. Other areas of the team, we know about the centre forward, the lack of, and trying to replace Ronaldo or whatever. But no, it's just good to report a good Man United, Rob. You know, we'll jump on teams when they're not doing well, for sure. Of course, we'll do that. But also, I like to think that we give praise when teams are playing better and they fix some issues. And Ten Hag, you know, you got to like what he's doing, Rob. You really have.
Yeah, I was talking about to a friend of mine. I just said, you know, the big thing is like your culture at your football club, and he's starting to change it. You can see some of the things he's doing with discipline, but he looks like he's got a good relationship with the players. Casemiro's become the look and learn from him guy. Just, you know, has won everything, but his appetite and the way he plays, and you just don't get the sense now United are going to sort of listen. They're going to lose and draw games, but you just don't get the sense they're going to go 3 or 4 games and we see those performances where nobody turns in. And a lot of credit to Ten Hag for what he's done. Let's move on, my friend, to the GTEC Stadium, to Brentford at home to Liverpool. I think we all realise what Brentford are at home with Thomas Frank in the group. There's no Ivan Toney. He wasn't available, not quite fit enough to join the squad after he was stretched off against West Ham, but we're hearing that injury's not too bad, so good news for Brentford on that front. Not so good news for Liverpool, Rob, who I thought got outthought and were outplayed against the Brentford team, who looked way more up for the game than Liverpool did, which I think has got to be a little worry for Jurgen Klopp in their hopes of finishing in the top 4.
Yeah, absolutely right, Rob. And this is so weird that we're talking about a Jurgen Klopp team that gets outfought and outrun a little bit. I think we all know, and certainly Jurgen Klopp and the Liverpool squad know what Brentford are all about and what they're good at. And they've taken the scalps of many top teams at Brentford. We know that from this season and last season. I think where the alarm bells ring, and I know that Cody Gakpo is going to add something to them, and they've got, you know, of course, injured players up there, but I worry less about the final third attacking-wise of Liverpool and more about everything else. I mean, the midfield has been talked about a lot. This was another example that they badly need some physicality, some running, some aggression in that area. And defensively, Rob, they still... I mean, like, and I know I feel like a broken record, right, with Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he's you know, of course, again, we always say it, brilliant going forward. But when Liverpool play and the ball turns over, they play with 3 at the back. Liverpool, they play with 3 at the back. Trent's very rarely there, and Klopp knows that, and he says that what we ask him to do, we don't expect him to be. Well, maybe you should expect him to do that. Or maybe you should do something different. That right side of area, you know, we can't see every single game and every goal that they can see, but so many come into that area. There was another goal, wasn't there, where a header comes in, where he didn't, I can't remember which goal it was.
Wieser.
Yeah, he's in between.
Wieser with the header, and he's worrying about the man outside him.
Yeah, to be fair, there's 2 men for him, right? And we know that, but of course, in the game, you know that if you're the fullback and there's 2, well, you go to the most dangerous player. And that's the one. You
make the central man, don't you? The guy in front of the goal is a danger.
You leave the guy behind you, and he didn't. And he was slow coming across, and it's like, a combination of midfield protection that is nowhere near as good as it has been, and a back 4 that's not. It's 3.5, and that's not easy. So when the opponents can get in midfield, they can turn, they can get the head up, they can pop balls over the top, they can cross balls in. If there's only 3 back there that are high, and there's a ton of space behind them, I remember last year, Rob, I think I had some pushback from Liverpool fans. You always talk about them defensively. They've got the best this and the best defensive record. And they were brilliant last year, Liverpool, with 92 points or something. But I remember sort of thinking, God, they risk it. And, they scored goals, they win games. But
it's on the edge.
They were on the edge a little bit. Yeah. And this year it's gone over that edge where the goals are coming through now. Another 3 goals and so many holes. When you watch Liverpool play, Rob, and you see opponents like, wow, there's a ton of space for them to go forward. So it continues, you know, and Jurgen Klopp maybe continue to be on the front foot and trust his players when they get the ball into attack. And it's just like, gosh, it doesn't look like a Jurgen Klopp team, Rob. And that's got to be concerning to all who work in the club and, of course, watch the team play every week.
And I think the thing for me, Robbie, is if it's not a Jurgen Klopp team that we're used to, we've played at such an intensity and such a speed. Like they played like Brentford played, but with more ability, and that's how they used to beat teams. Now, if they're not going to be able to bring that, and the midfield is without doubt one of the key areas, just the setup, the intensity, the pressing from there is not happening. So all of a sudden, your high lines now is so exposed to anybody who can play balls in behind and play through the press. Does Jurgen have to think of another plan? Do they have to go a different way, or are we talking about changes? When you look at Fabinho now, Henderson, Thiago, they don't have that same intensity that those players had 3 years ago that could put that pressure on, could make, they set the tone. Is he going to have to try and play a little bit more of a possessing type, playing balls through that front three that looked like, Nunez, I know, didn't score again, but the threats are there, and I just feel the goals will come. He's just got to keep getting there. He's got to concentrate a little bit more on that finishing touch. But is it a different Liverpool we're going to see under Klopp, Rob, or is he going to have to kind of change this group to go back to what gave them success in the past?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting question, Rob, isn't it? Off the top of my head, I sort of think, with the front players they've got there, they don't really want to do too much defensive work. So have three real physical, like they did with Ronaldo, Henderson and Fabinho in there.
Hendo and Fabinho.
God, it's so difficult to get past that area before you got to the back four. But last year they nearly won the league. They nearly won 4 titles with Thiago in there and Henderson and Fabinho. So I don't know, if you're Jurgen Klopp, he's probably thinking, we can't be a million miles away from what we did last year. We almost won so much stuff. So it's a difficult one. Absolutely, physicality in midfield. Jude Bellingham would be a perfect player, of course. Whether that's going to happen in the summer, talk about Real Madrid apparently, on the right path to signing him. It was big news today, I think, in Marca in Spain. So it's he's got to show how great he is, Rob, to try and tweak it a little bit and get him back on track. I still look at the squad. I still look at the attacking footballers and think, God, there's still a good team there. Big Virgil van Dijk, Rob, looks like he's going to be out for a few weeks, which is a concern.
A month or so, didn't it? So I think they're talking about month with a hamstring.
Yeah. So tough times for them a little bit,
Worry.
Yeah. But well done, Brentford.
And the club lost the credit to Brentford, Thomas Frank. Like you say, no Ivan Toney, doesn't worry about it, sets his team up, Wiesel and Bomo up the top, the midfield players who can play, lovely setup. Henry on the right side, Roslev on the other. A lot of credit to Thomas Frank, because his team always look well organised, always know what they're doing. Rarely see a poor performance where they're not at it, they're not trying. They get beat some days because the opposition might be better, but it's a credit to them. I said the G-Tech is like a graveyard to a big club. You go there and you don't turn up. That's a group who are going to run all over you. Let's move it on to our final game before we go to a few other results, and that was Tottenham away at Crystal Palace. The Tottenham team we've known that I think had conceded in 10 games, all competitions, the first half performances not particularly good, and this one was carried along that line, but certainly good in the second half, mate. Good enough to put 4 goals past Palace and take a little bit of the pressure, if pressure is the right word, on Antonio Conte and his team in terms of tactics, really. I think we all just feel like, why can't Spurs go for games in the early start and get themselves ahead, and then maybe if they have to defend or they have to play a little bit different. But this maybe bears truth to the way that Conte wants to do it, Rob. If he can keep a clean sheet in the first half and then they can open up in the second, maybe that's the way he feels they're going to get top 4.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that I thought Tottenham started the game better, Rob. The start of the game, the first half. I thought the first making a note like, this is better. They're passing the ball. They're passing the ball. They're keeping possession. They're moving.
I thought for 15, 20 minutes they started well.
Then it dropped off.
Yeah, I think for 15 to 20, and then all of a sudden Palace came into it. Yeah, they dropped off, Yeah,
and Palace looked at good chances, and I think at half-time, we weren't in the studio, guys. The other guys were in the studio, and they sort of said, Palace looked the more dangerous team, which I agree with. had better opportunities. And second half, it changed again, and they started to more progressive. And Harry Kane, isn't it? I mean, it's just Harry Kane. To be fair, brilliant bit of play down the left-hand side, and Ivan Perisic's quality with that little dinked ball. He heads it in. I mean, once they score the first goal, then they're in total control because they know what's going to happen. They know the team's going to come back, and they are brilliant at the counter-attacking. And Heung-min Son takes his goal really, really well, and Doherty as well. I mean, it was a good day for Spurs. I can't unsee other performances recently, Rob, from them. I can't forget about some of the performances and how they concede and some of the awful results that they've had. But like when you've got Harry Kane, I think he said it afterwards. You got a chance. I think there was I think in the UK the Sky Sports show over there talked about if Spurs continue with Harry Kane being fit, they're going to finish in the top 4. I don't know whether I totally agree with that with recent performances, but Kane's a special player. He's a special player, and his second goal, Rob, where he touches it and an early strike into the far corner. I mean, it's top stuff, and it's called the jets of people like us that have jumped on Spurs like, God, it should be better than this, given the players and the excuses about he's got to have these players and we can't get in the top 4, etc., etc. That's better. That's better, Tottenham, and that's what needs to be the kind of the blueprint, but the way they should approach games. Because, again, they started the game on the front foot, trying to play. And I think it was Danny Higginbotham that made the point in our show, Rob, about them wing-backs getting forward. Well, wing-backs can get forward when your team pass the ball. If you don't have the ball and they have it, you just got to go back. And that's when you get the 5 at the back. If you have the ball, you knock it around a little bit. Wing-backs, I've done it. I've played a wing-back position for quite a few games for Middlesbrough. You edge forward and you say, oh, this is good. I'm like a right winger and not like a right fullback. So the fullbacks forward, yes, important, but you've got to play to enable them to get forward. So that was better. So let's see, Rob, if they can keep it going.
Yeah, and you think of the players who were missing. Like Bentancur was missing, Richarlison missing, Kulusevski missing. I mean, they're 3 players who make Spurs a lot better. So, I think it's just that kind of when they do sit back, when they do allow the opposition, and maybe better finishers or a little bit more clinical team than Crystal Palace were, who created 1 or 2 good chances actually. Elise, I thought was very good again. Obviously Zaha, Eze, when you got those 3 in that RU as a front 4, you're going to be tested. But better opposition, Rob, or somebody maybe has a bit of luck in front of goal when Spurs go in that kind of defensive mode, just means that it's so much harder then to get back in the game as they found out against Aston Villa the game before. So it's hard to, it's difficult to weigh Spurs up, really. You see that Villa performance one week, and then you see the Palace, which is, probably what Conte wants the next game, and it's difficult. But listen, with him in charge, and Harry Kane, if he can stay fit, continue to score goals. What is it, 15 now in the Premier League? I mean, he's only 6 behind Haaland, as much as Haaland's flying with 21. But Spurs with those 2, with Conte and with Haaland, if they could get Heung-min Son back scoring goals, may just feel they can again nick full place as we come to the end of the table.
Yeah, Rob, let's just we're going to touch the US soccer situation with the Berhalter Reyna stuff. We're going to touch that just afterwards. But before we get onto that, let's just sum up the other results, Rob, and pick out some results that are interesting. What do you think?
Well, Everton won, Brighton 4. Roberto De Zerbi just continues, I think in 5 he didn't get a win in his first 5 games, and I was saying that just for confidence and for morale it'd be important to do. If they've gone the other way now and totally played Everton off the park at Goodison Park in that one, puts a bit more pressure on Frank Lampard. So a little mention for Roberto De Zerbi and Brighton. I want to go to Leicester City and Fulham, Rob, because interesting game for 2 teams who, certainly Leicester would feel that they should be getting all 3 points in that at home against a newly promoted team. But it was Fulham who got the win, courtesy of another Mitrovic goal. And I'm going to go straight to my underappreciated performer of the week. And I think he's a guy I've mentioned a couple of times on air. Marco Silva, my friend. Marco Silva is a young 45-year-old, still only 45-year-old coach who came into the Premier League for Portuguese football, was manager at Hull. We saw some good signs there. I think even though Hull got relegated, he went in at Watford, had a shorty spell at Watford, a little bit of unrest when he left to go to Everton. Watford fans obviously not happy with that. He goes to Everton, things don't work out as we've seen with Everton, a number of managers. He finds his way to Fulham, gets promotion with Fulham and leads them into the Premier League. And I've always, unfortunately for Fulham have always been that yo-yo team coming up where you think that they, do well in the Championship, come into the Premier League and don't ever quite work it out. Well, from the first day of the season, really, Rob, they were at home to Liverpool. They drew 2-2 and they were unlucky not to win that day. And I kind of said, this looks a different Fulham. Let's see how this continues. Well, not only has it continued, I think it's got better. I think they've got a better understanding of the Premier League. There's more physicality about them. In Mitrovic, they know they've got a goal scorer and they build a team around it. The likes of Pereira, Paulinho, Willian, Tim Ream, Anthony Robinson, I could go on and on, Robinson. Performers, Rob, who surprised me, I have to say, and I hold my hands up. I thought Fulham again would be one of the three down there, struggling to just, with the strength of the Premier League, have been brilliant and they've been outstandingly coached by Marco Silva, who deserves a bit of credit because he's had a bit of bad rap from English media over the time, and he looks like he's got this one right, and he looks to me, Rob, as though he's a bit more humbled by what's happened in the past, and he's out to prove a point, and I just think it's a load of credit for Fulham, who are sitting, I think it's 7th in the table. They've got 28 points at this point, Rob. I think it's after 18 games. They only got 28 points all season the last time they were in the Premier League. I mean, that's how well they've done from this season. So a little mention, my underappreciated performer of the week, Marco Silva at Fulham Football Club.
Well, it's a perfect kind of selection, Rob, for this little thing that we do every week, Rob, in terms of underappreciated. I mean, it really is a perfect selection because he has been underappreciated. And Everton, they booted him out when they were in pretty good position in the league table. He's shown himself to be a good manager. And that's going to be, other...
They'd like him back now, by the way, wouldn't they?
I know. That's what I mean. I think other clubs will...
Everton wouldn't mind him back right now.
I know, absolutely right. So I think it's a good shout. And it's pretty remarkable. And I've admitted being wrong with this straight away because I thought the three going up were going to come back down again. Well, Fulham aren't. And that's brilliant, brilliant work. We knew that Mitrovic had the potential to score goals in the Premier League, Rob, but the rest of the team, like you said, the signings and stuff, it's been remarkable. And another great result against Leicester. The excitement's there with them, Rob. Promotion, Leicester, playing well, and the excitement isn't there with Leicester so much. So fair play. It's a good shout. Brighton, I think when you mentioned them, couldn't agree more. I think De Zerbi, by the way, is going places. I think he's a special manager. And I think Brighton have done brilliant work to bring him in again. Somebody else that might look to climb in the future. And sorry, Brighton fans and stuff, and that's maybe a while off. But I think the two games that you've talked about is just a reminder of this league and the manager that we've got there. Just going down the list, talking about managers that need a result. Steve Cooper, not in a Forest, Rob, they go to Southampton and win 1-0. Massive result for them. I saw the celebrations afterwards and what it looked like to Steve Cooper. He's absolutely buzzing he is right now, and they're climbing away or out of that bottom three for Nottingham Forest.
Out the bottom three, aren't they?
Yeah. It's a little bit of a nightmare for Southampton, and this whole project of this new ownership and how they're going to do things, and they were going to trust youth more than anybody had ever trusted youth before. The same thing with the manager. They've gone with Jones as a manager that they think he's been underappreciated and undervalued, coming from Luton Town, which always looked like a big step up. That's 4 games now, Rob, I think, and 4 losses for him. Do you think...
Yeah, four straight losses, yeah.
Are they... could they change him? Could this be one of them, okay, we made a mistake?
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. This is Premier League and they could change him. Listen, they went down a certain route with an inexperienced Premier League manager, inexperienced squad, a young coach that can, touch the buttons, hasn't worked. But what I would have liked, Rob, is somewhere, and I was trying to think who the person I'm thinking of, and nobody springs straight to mind, but leave it with me by the time the next podcast will have. I just think because of his lack of Premier League understanding and knowledge and hands-on experience on the ground, a number 2, Rob. I want an experienced number 2 who can help the manager and also help the players out. You know football as well as I know. There'll be a WhatsApp group of players who are going, I'm not sure this guy knows what he's doing, by the way. We have 8 changes of system in the 4 games. We've had so many players coming in. We haven't won a game. Football is a harsh, Rob, and you know the world that it's in. You know what dressing rooms are like. Yeah. He just might need somebody who helps him and somebody who can go in and talk to the players who's been there. And again, I'm not sure off the top of my head who that is, but there's somebody out there who's got lots of experience, who's been around it, who would like to get their foot back in the door. A good club like Southampton that's...
Sorry to interrupt you, Rob. Sean Dyche, isn't it?
Should have come with him.
Sean Dyche is somebody that's on the sideline in the Premier League now. And Sean Dyche, whether it's... And I would imagine Everton are probably thinking about Sean Dyche right now, Rob, but he's proven himself to be a stayer in the Premier League. And I don't think the fit, given the Southampton owners and the Sport Republic and what they're trying to go for, I don't think it would... And I'm not sure Sean Dyche would take that job, Rob. Everton... Maybe for them, after losing, of course, the pressure's now on Frank Lampard. We talk about De Zerbi at Brighton, but that's an awful result for Everton Football Club, losing 4-1 at home to Brighton. Whether Sean Dyche is waiting for the phone to ring, Sean Dyche, sorry to go backwards a little bit, Rob, but just quickly on that, do you think Sean Dyche would be a good fit to go into Everton if they wanted to make a change there?
Yeah. I said before, I think there's more to Sean Dyche than just what we saw at Burnley. I think you get an instant respect. I think you get an instant buy-in because of what he's done at the football club before. I think he can play a little bit more enterprising football than people give him credit for if he's got the players to do it, and he's got the personality to go into that football club and be the boss, be the gaffer that this football club needs, Rob. You've got to have a bit of personality. You've got to have something about you. He's got good humour. He can be strong when he needs to. I think players will listen to him. And I think he'll get instant buy-in.
Reaction.
And I think that's a problem for Everton. If it's one of those that takes too long, listen, the season's eating away.
Yeah. Just to summarise, Rob, before we get into this other stuff, just quickly, Leeds United. I didn't see that. I just saw the highlights of that game, 2-2 against West Ham United. Fun game, as Leeds games always are.
Yeah,
they're
came
up,
back
they're down,
in
they're up,
there,
they're down. Yeah, so that's that one.
Yeah.
And I think Wolves are going to improve under Lopetegui. They got a 1-1 draw against Aston Villa.
Yeah,
themselves done pretty well. And that kind of rouse up this. Well, I think it's week 19, Rob, but because of the passing of the Queen. There's only 18. It's kind of 18 games being played right now. I think we're one more match week into being halfway in the season. Okay, in some ways a tough transition, Rob. But we wanted. We don't talk a lot about US soccer and stuff, and we don't talk MLS. But there's such a big story that we just wanted to have a little chat about this Gio Reyna.
To touch on it, yeah.
And Gregg Berhalter and Claudio and Danielle Reyna and this situation, Rob. And wow, in all my time in the professional game, I don't think I've ever heard a story like this where, again, I hope I get my kind of facts right here, but of course Gio Reyna was not involved in a lot of the games, and that became clear pretty early, and the message gets back to Gio's mother and father about this, that aren't particularly thrilled about it, and then of course on returning, Gregg Berhalter did a private event, and I think it was off-the-record conversation, Rob, and it kind of became apparent that Gio Reyna's behaviour, he was the one that, they thought about sending home, etc., etc., etc. And then the Reyners found out about it, and basically they were on a phone call to US Soccer to say, I think you should know about this situation with Gregg Berhalter with his then girlfriend, Rob, 31 years ago, which is something that he addressed it, and he said he's incredibly ashamed about it. He got counselling. they ended up coming back together again. I think it's just past 25 years of marriage. And that's being brought
25
up now.
years of marriage with his wife, 4 children.
And it's awful what he did with the girlfriend back then, of course. But that to be brought up by a parent of one of your players as a retribution, really, of the treatment that their son was getting. I don't know if I've ever seen that.
A former professional as well, Rob. A former professional, by the way, who's been in the game, who's got good standing in the game.
Great standing in the game. He was a brilliant player, by the way, Reyna. Played against him when he was at Sunderland Football Club and Man City.
Oh, yeah.
What a good player.
Man
and
City
what a lovely bloke,
Sunderland,
by the way. I've met him a few times. Been in his company. Lovely guy. Can you get your head around that, Rob, that the parents of that they say, I'm going to get him. Here, this is what you should know about the manager. I've never heard that before. What do you think about it, apart from being very, very sad?
I'm glad you went on the detail, because obviously, we're giving the headline details of a very intricate situation that fell at the lap of US soccer. Couldn't believe it, really, Rob. And the thing that disappointed me most is it's a really terrible glow on US soccer. And we've been in this country now, you longer than I, and one of the things we try and do is promote football as best we can. Not just Premier League, because Premier League is obviously that we work on, but you've worked on other leagues for other companies while you're here. I've worked in the MLS, spent 3 years when I first came over. We appreciate other leagues and other players in football. We just, are here to try and grow the game here, Rob, and put it in a better light. And when I first came to American football, I couldn't believe how in youth football people would shout at coaches and tell coaches what to do and why isn't my son playing? And I kind of got used to it, and I ended up having to get used to it, but couldn't quite understand it, because it wasn't the kind of thing we ever saw back in the UK in youth football. And what America's basically done is taken one of those, every coach in every state will have had some parent who's felt entitlement and felt their son hasn't got or daughter hasn't got the rub of the green and wanted to say something to the coach. And I can't believe we're playing this out on the biggest stage of international football that gives a terrible look to American football. American football's got its challenges, Rob, for its size, for its pay for play, for its not at times joined up kind of pyramid to get players through from the youth system. It's got its issues that it has to still deal with. But when you're talking about this kind of entitlement for something, I just think it's sent the game backwards, and is why people will say it'll never be taken seriously as long as these kind of things are still happening. Can you imagine Jack Grealish's mum writing to the FA and saying that saying that Gareth Southgate had a situation back when he was at Middlesbrough as a player? I mean, it's incredible to think that this is even happening, Rob. It's like a soap opera. I don't know who's going to play Berhalter, and I don't know who's going to play Reyna in the soap opera that's going to come out, the documentary, because it's definitely going to be played out, absolutely played out.
And by the way, what makes it more kind of sad is that they were great friends. These are close family friends involved here. Yeah. Berhalter playing with Reyna. There's been photographs of them in the same team and cuddling. Yeah. And, that the whole thing again. And I know they're involved. I think the wives played football together or same university or something.
I think they were roommates or something.
Yeah. It's like you said. It's a show. It's going to be a documentary or a film about it.
How do you see the situation with Gregg Berhalter? Because there was some who were suggesting maybe he wouldn't, get his contract renewed anyway. This can't do him any good, Rob, can it, in some respects? And I almost feel it could be, if the US soccer don't want Gregg now, they've got a great reason to not offer him the contract and take it elsewhere.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to be right, Rob. I think I'm right in saying his contract is up. I've enjoyed the way that the team is playing under him and over a period of time now. And I know that there's been criticisms along the way. I just like the proactive style of Gregg Berhalter. and the way that he wants his team to play, given the talent that's coming through in all areas of the national team, particularly in the midfield area for the US. I kind of like it. Like, they're playing football. They were great against England. They're proactive. They're attacking. At times maybe a little bit naive and a bit gung-ho in terms of attacking, leave themselves a little bit caught defensively. But I've kind of liked it. So I was interested to see this project continue with Berhalter, continues as the manager, because I think he's done a good job. And I think the players, we spoke to, who did we speak to? We spoke to Tyler Adams, Rob, of course, on the side of the pitch at Ellen Road.
No, Tyler, yeah.
And he said how I asked him about that, and it's absolutely enjoyed playing for him, and the style of play is good, and there's been progression, and the whole point of the world thinking differently about American soccer, I agree with, and I think it happened. I think the respect for the way that they played is pretty good. So to think that this is probably going to come to an end is for me disappointing. But I mean, if you're US soccer, Rob, and there's been conflict in the past, with the women's team and how they've been treated, and now this situation flags up. They've got investigators on this story from 30 odd years ago. It's I feel like US soccer are gonna make a stand at that behaviour towards female in that way. The kicking out is unacceptable at any point, and like you said, I think it's an easy way to say, you know what, that's not okay, and you're not going to get offered a new contract. That's what I think is probably going to happen.
Yeah, it's such a sad situation, Rob. And do you know what I was thinking today? And it's quite a delicate kind of situation, but I wanted to mention it anyway. That during the World Cup, we lost a great person in American football here, Grant Wall, and how much he was a champion for the sport and how much he devoted his life to lifting football up and making American football part of a serious conversation. And I just think this man lost his life in the World Cup and dedicated his life to for the betterment of US soccer. I just think everybody involved should be ashamed of themselves, should hang their heads really, because they've hurt American football now. It's become something of a laughing stock when we're talking parents are getting involved. Parents are getting involved with the non-playing of a player. That's what happens in U9s, Rob, not at international football level.
Getting rid of the coach.
And they should all who are involved and eventually to get rid of the coach. And then does that mean Gio's going to play now? It's so sad. It's such a sad thing.
Yeah, well, we'll see, mate. We'll see how that shakes out.
That's enough said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, sad news to end on, but we have come to the end of the festive fixtures. Manchester City closed the gap on Arsenal to 5 points at the top of the table. It's the big six we expected in the top spots, if you add Newcastle. So I suppose it's the big six we expected in the top spots, minus Chelsea. They're sitting in 10th. There's work for Graham Potter to do. We'll be back on January the 15th. That is Matchweek 19, and that's after the FA Cup third round games. But for now, I'm Earle. He's Mustoe, together with the two Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe, stay healthy. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.